So
Yeah.
quarterback 1, D-line, then DBs, offensive line at 4, brings us to number 5 here in Sim City. And I bet you can guess what position group I have here at 5. I mean, I've gone heavy emphasis on both sides of the ball on the passing game. So who do you think is the 5th most important position group?
Well, I would think it's wide receiver. I would think that's
You are
where you're
correct.
going. Okay, good. Yeah. And go
Yes.
ahead. Let me hear your logic for it.
Well, it's no longer just the big fast guy outside, and it's so much more quarterback friendly to have somebody in the slot. Ideally, you have a tight end. We'll get to tight ends here in a moment on the other side of them. But just with the way offensive coordinators are using 1 formations and 2 different types of bodies, that it's not just a big guy who can run fast at Z on the outside. That I want a group that's got 1 or maybe 2 guys who can be just outside that tight end and just light up whoever they put on in the slot, whether it's your 3rd best corner, whether it's your best safety. Maybe they accidentally end up by formation, they get screwed and have a linebacker on that 3rd person in a bunch out there. But it's the number of ways with formations and the number of different types of body types the coordinators are using. Why I almost had them in front of the offensive line. I thought I might get a little bit scolded by you, and I didn't feel great about having wide receivers in front of the offensive line, but there was no way they were going to be any lower than 5.
Well, for some reason, I feel like wide receivers get discredited, a little bit right now. Like, I hear this talking point a lot when I watch football shows on TV or listen to the radio. Name me the number, the last time the number 1 receiver in the league won a Super Bowl. Oh, okay. I mean, yeah, you're right. I can't name it. I don't know. But, like, that doesn't mean the teams that won the Super Bowl didn't have really good receivers. I mean, that's insane. I mean, it truly is. I mean, you just go through the teams right now or whenever. I mean, the Patriots team that won Super Bowls, they had really good receivers. I know they weren't all, like, it wasn't Randy Moss or Terrell Owens, but they were really good. And again, I mean, last time I checked, Kansas City has good receivers. They just won the Super Bowl. Pittsburgh Steelers and the ones they won with Big Ben, they still had good receivers. Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay at that time had good receivers. So I don't like that argument. John Elway, Rod Smith, and Ed McCaffrey were really good receivers. I know they weren't Randy Moss, but they were really good. Right. So I hate how that's like become a talking point right now. It's a little stupid to me.
Do you think they should have been higher on this list? Do you think that position group should be higher than 5th?
To me, it's arguable. You could argue between them and the secondary, maybe. I don't know. It's close. I have no issue. I would have put the O-line in front of them, certainly. No, I think you're right. I think if you made me pin it down, I would probably make wide receivers 5th too. I really would. I think that makes a lot of sense. But I just don't like when people say, oh, you don't need great receivers to win a Super Bowl. That's insane. That's stupidity.
Right. Exactly. And your 5th, so wide receivers as a group I have as the 5th most important. Who do you have as your favorite group?
The team that won the Super Bowl. I'm going with the Chiefs. I don't mean to be like, Johnny Chalk here, but, when I just look at the room they have as a whole, first off, the top-end talent is special, let alone if one of the top-end talent guys get hurt, they got other guys behind them that are also special. And, I looked for wide receiver rooms that I felt like had 3 or more guys that I went, damn, that's a good group. I know you could argue there's better duos out there in the NFL across the league, but, for the purpose of this exercise and team building, I got to have at least 3 and really want 4. And I think that's where, you get into Kansas City, when you really look at them, of course, Tyreek Hill and Sammy Watkins, yes. But the fact that they have, McCole Hardman right there to be like, oh, hey, Sammy's hurt this week. McCole, can you get in? And we don't want to really miss a beat. We still need a guy that can run 4-3 and scare the shit out of people. Oh, hey, no problem. We got one of those guys. Throw him in there, coach. Yeah. And then to have Demarcus Robinson as your 4th, that to me is where I just look at them and go, damn, their offense, one injury at that position. We saw Tyreek Hill get hurt last year. Didn't really hurt their offense. Sammy Watkins missed a bunch of games. Didn't really hurt their offense. So I think between that, I would have liked maybe in the perfect world for them to have one more guy that you could count on. You'd like really to have five, but I think their four are so damn good. I just got to give them the lead here as far as that position's concerned.
And really, their fifth could be considered Travis Kelce. He
I
blocks well,
know.
but he is like an extra receiver. So we'll get to him. We'll get to the tight ends here in just a little bit. How about some other groups? I mean, and it's impossible to argue with Kansas City. They won the entire thing, so no argument there. I'd like to hear who's second, third, and fourth on your list, though.
Yeah, I think that the teams that came out to me more than any right off the bat, the Bills, all right? I think when you look at the Bills and go Cole Beasley, John Brown, and Stephon Diggs, and then they have some other down the line guys like Robert Foster and Isaiah McKenzie, who I think are really good players too. I went, damn, that's a really good five they got. Like a really good
Puts
five.
a lot of pressure on Josh Allen next year.
It does. Listen, they don't have that excuse anymore this year. They got everything. So yeah, he's going to have to be on his game, and if he's not, throwing completions, we're not going to be able to make any other excuses up for him this year. And I love Josh Allen. I'm a believer in his abilities.
Right.
The Cardinals, I think they're one team you got to throw there into this conversation a little right now. With DeAndre Hopkins, Christian Kirk, Larry Fitzgerald. I'm missing another name that I wanted to think. Andy Isabella in the conversation. And there's still one more guy. When I look at that group, I go, damn, that's pretty good. And then the Texans, I know they let go of DeAndre Hopkins, but still, to have Cooks, Phil Fuller, and Kenny Stills as being your top three options right off the bat, that's a really good three to where all three can have a similar skill set. You won't be able to pin one guy to doing one certain thing. So, those are ones that jump out to me. But I think just the Chiefs' top-level talent and the fact that they have four really good ones. And I forgot Randall Cobb, sorry, and Kiki Kuti. That's who I was thinking of. So I can't do it all. I can't talk into a FaceTime and look up all the info and all that. So I knew I was blanking on two names of that Texas team. But, damn, that's a good group. Way to go, Pete Dibble-Litis, with that text message to remind me who I was missing there.
So maybe you're one of the few people who are thinking about Houston Texans football. They're not mad at Bill O'Brien for trading away his best receiver. If they're getting mentioned as one of the best three or four groups without him, and they got David Johnson as well, the draft pick, I mean, maybe that wasn't such a bad move.
I mean, I think he got thrown under the bus too drastically, Bill O'Brien, in this conversation with DeAndre Hopkins. You can't play Laramie Tunsil, Deshaun Watson, and DeAndre Hopkins, all top market money. Laramie Tunsil's the richest lineman in football. Oh, and then we're going to have the richest wide receiver in football. And then, oh, hey, Deshaun Watson's coming up, and he'll be the second richest player in all of football behind Patrick Mahomes. It's just not possible to build a team that way. And I think Bill O'Brien knew that, and he knew he had to move on from it. But he did a good job of, filling that DeAndre Hopkins void. And to me, I'll be interested, Paul, and you just tell me your thoughts here. Like, I don't know. There's some ways where I think they could be better. And I know that nobody on that roster is as good as DeAndre Hopkins, but I'm saying from this standpoint, in a big moment, any big play, it always was Watson looking for DeAndre Hopkins. And there's a lot of big moments I could show you where it didn't work out because, of course, the defense knew that too. And they doubled him in big situations and took him away and did all that. Now they might have a little bit of a, hey, let's just call the offense, and we got 3 and 4 good receivers out there, and whoever's open, Deshaun, just find a guy and throw him the ball, right? I think that could be a better formula for them instead of Deshaun going, I don't really trust that one guy. Forget the concept. Let me just play backyard football, and it'll be me and DeAndre, and we'll make something happen. They're great. They can make it happen a lot, but I don't know if you can beat the really, really great teams that way.
I think the answer to that question lies with two people. Number one, is Randall Cobb still a quality receiver? If he can still give him quite a bit, then that combined with if David Johnson can be even close to what he was a couple of seasons ago, if you have that kind of threat out of the backfield in the passing game, and Randall Cobb is still pretty good. So those two players at a good level versus DeAndre Hopkins, I mean, I think most would still pick Hopkins. However, that combo of great receiver out of the backfield and quality third guy in Cobb, I see what you're saying.
You know what I'm saying? I'm just saying it might be a little
Yeah.
harder to defend them as a complete offense this year. As in, if you and I went back and watched every big 3rd and 5 from last year, we could probably sit there and go, all right, here's Hopkins. Watch, they're going to devise a play to try to get him the ball. Now, it might have not always gone there, but the play was for him. And there were certainly some big moments during the year. The Kansas City game is one that jumps to my mind. The regular season matchup. They had a 4th down where they tried to throw a slot slant to DeAndre Hopkins. Well, a few weeks before that, they had done that against the Indianapolis Colts and got the 1st down. So the Kansas City Chiefs watch film and they know what's going on. And they said, you're not going to do that to us. And, I think that could be a good thing for Deshaun Watson and Bill O'Brien for this Texans offense.
Hey, fast forwarding to next year when we do this exercise, I wonder if the Denver Broncos are going to be on this group with young, talented receivers in between year 1 and 2 or 2 and 3, and then their 1st-round pick, Jerry Jeudy, and 2nd-round pick, Hamler out of Penn State.
I know.
That's
right.
one. That'll be a fun one to keep an eye on to see if they show up here in this conversation too.
Definitely.
Tight end, no surprise, at number 6. It was offensive line 4, wide receiver 5, and now we got the tight ends here at 6.
Tight ends, there's a lot of good duos out there, right? That's one thing I'll say. Hey, Philadelphia got Goddard and Ertz. You go, oh, okay, is that it? But I was looking for more than just a duo here. Again, I don't want a duo or just a duo. If you're a team that runs a lot of 2 tight end sets and all of a sudden one of those guys get hurt, damn, your offense is screwed. And then, you got to start to find a new way and probably play a receiver that you don't feel comfortable with and play him more. So, I looked for tight ends that had more than 2, or teams that had more than 2 tight ends to really fill out the roster. And again, that would have been, New England's approach, when they were going tight end heavy. They had people in case Aaron Hernandez or Rob Gronkowski got hurt to where they could still do it. Now, not at that level, but they could still run their offense. So, yeah, there was a few teams that came out to me, but I think ultimately it became a 2-man race when I really dove into it. And you know who won. Who do you think won here?
For the tight ends? I actually don't. I'm all ears.
Okay,
There's a number of groups that come to mind.
I think it's the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I got to go with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers here. I do. I just think when you look at 3 guys who have really everything to their football game, I am going to give them, Cameron Brate can block, and he's a good pass-catching tight end. O.J. Howard, again, I feel like just because he was drafted in the 1st round, we all think he's crap. No, I know he hasn't performed to a top 20 pick level, but he's still a good tight end. And there's just not a lot of them out there in the league that are as big as he is and can run the way he can after the catch. And he's a pretty damn good blocker too. And then now you add the greatest tight end of all time, who I know has missed a year, certainly, but he's still like in pretty prime playing age. I just look at those 3 and go, man, one injury happens, nothing's going to happen. They can get in 3 tight end sets and play power football or split them out, and they could all run routes that way. So I think ultimately, I just think those 3 guys, the quality and size and strength and ability to run and block and all those things, I gave them the edge just a little bit over the Las Vegas Raiders. That was my second team at the tight end position, oddly enough.
I want to hear more about those Raiders in a moment, but listening to you talk about the tight ends for Tampa Bay, they're also really, really good at wide receiver. A number of different kind of weapons there. This is why I have defensive backs 3rd on the list of important groups in building a team, because think about defending the Buccaneers next year. If you don't have a bunch of really good defensive backs with those tight ends and those receivers and Tom Brady, you're screwed.
You're screwed. Agreed. And yeah, it's got to be, whether, there's a lot of ways you can attack it, whether you got coverage linebackers who are basically like safeties, right, who can run with these tight ends, or safeties or big corners, whatever it may be. But yeah, you talked about like, hey, they're wide receivers. We know they're dangerous. Now, it's a little bit of a 2-man race. They drafted a kid out of Minnesota, Tyler Johnson, that I like. Certainly, they got Jaden Mickens there, okay. But really, it's Chris Godwin's and Mike Evans. But when you talk about, those two guys and then those two tight ends or two of those three tight ends on the field at the same time, to your point, Paul, they're really going to put defenses in a tough spot. I mean, they really are. How do you cover that group? Godwin, as good as he is in the slot and moving around, so, okay, you got a smaller guy on him, but then you need a bigger DB for Mike Evans. And then, man, we need a bigger DB for O.J. Howard. And then, wait, what the hell are we going to do with Gronk? Are we going to put a linebacker on him? No way. He's going to tear a linebacker apart. There's no chance they have him covering him. So then you go, okay, wait, do we have another big corner? Or do we have to put our safety out there? So you're right. They're going to pose some problems just before the game even starts with teams figuring out the personnel and how they want to match up with the Tampa Bay Bucs on first and second down.
Is that the kind of team that maybe you just, even if you're used to playing man, you're like, you know what, we're going to play zone against these guys because we don't have enough different kinds of athletes in the back end to match up with what they might roll out there on any down?
Yeah, I think you're going to have to dabble with that. And, there's going to be certain teams that I do think that can match up with them. I do, but at the same time, you're going to have to be careful too, of too much man-to-man, and they're switching guys around, and it's confusing your defense. And wait, we thought they were going to split out receivers to tight ends. Now they're over here playing, traditional tight end. They're going to play power run football. Wait, we have our DBs on the edge of the defense now being responsible for the D and E gaps on the outside. That's not good. Oh, we better check the zone and get back in here. Hey, linebackers, get back in here. Help us out. We got a 190-pound corner that's going to have to set the edge against Rob Gronkowski. So, you're going to have to be very careful about what defenses you call. And really what will happen, Paul, is coaches, when they play the Bucs, will have a play sheet for certain personnels to where, okay, this personnel's in, and we have our personnel that matches it. And also they'll probably have checks as according to certain formations the Bucs are in, so they don't get caught in some of those scenarios that I just explained.
Buccaneers loaded at tight end. A nice job of pointing that out. So here's a scenario for you. Let's say end of preseason with Gronk, with Brate, and with Howard. Some team offers a mid-round pick or third or fourth round pick for either Brate or Howard. Would you say, you know what, I'm going to stay with these three because I love what we can do? Or are you going to go with that trade?
No, I'm staying. Bucs, it's too late. You're all in. It's Tom Brady time. It's Tampa Bay. It's Tampa Tom, whatever the hell you want to call it. But they're all in for the Super Bowl. So, we know this is not a great offensive line down there in Tampa. The tight ends can help that out. You got another body to help in max protection. They can help in the run game, and especially the edge run game. And, Brady, we know, is a master at throwing the tight end. I mean, that's one of the things I've always been amazing. You have people around him in the pocket. Oh, man. And he could still throw a 30-yard laser down the middle to Rob Gronkowski. And, it might not be accurate because he's got people hanging all over him, but he knows where he is, and he knows how to put it in a spot to where, the big tight end can get it or nobody does. And I just think, too, with, not a really deep wide receiver core they have in Tampa, too, you got to take the tight ends into account to help that out. Like you said, you got to almost count the tight ends as semi-slash receivers this day and age in the NFL, too, to where, they're going to play an important part in the passing game. I'm sure Brady's going to have some plays that they ran in New England for the tight end that the Tampa Bay is going to go, ooh, we never thought of it or did it this way. That's interesting. So I just think it would make two sense. You're all in right now. Go for it. These are good tight ends, and I think they are going to help that football team out in a lot of ways.
Tell us a little more about the Raiders showing up there at number 2 on your best group of tight ends.
Well, the Raiders are like under the radar. First off, Jason Witten's there, right? So, hey, Jason Witten, I know it's the end of his career, but, he's still, the way he played last year, I was shocked. I couldn't believe it. I mean, called some games, and not that he was like a superstar, but he was still really good. He could still block people. He's not scary in the pass game, but he's certainly smart and knows how to run routes and use people's leverage against them to where if you need a 6-yard, 8-yard completion, Jason Witten still get open. But the big thing is they have tremendous depth and versatility. Like, it was really close to me. First off, I don't know if a lot of people realize that Darren Waller was like, statistically one of the best tight ends in football last year.
Right.
And really the go-to guy for that Raiders team, and had over 1,100 yards receiving. So he's really good. But then when you get into Nick O'Leary, who's a really good H-back utility tight end who could do some different things, right? We said Jason Witten, Foster Moreau, big kid they got a few years ago out of LSU, is a big blocking tight end who's just decent in the pass game, nothing special, but brings the blocking aspect to it. They got 3 or 4 guys, and I know Gruden values the tight end position, who are real solid players, with one who's about to be a household superstar at the tight end position that people just don't know about. And that's Darren Waller. So they were very close in the running there with me with Tampa Bay at that tight end position.
And we shall see as the season picks up and goes on who is throwing them the ball. I think Derek Carr is on his final chance there, and Marcus Mariota sitting there waiting in the wings. We'll see who is the guy as the season plays out. At number 7, and then we'll go to 8 and 9, and that'll be it on this Sim City building a team. 7, I have special teams. And I know you didn't spend a lot of time on the punters and the kickers, but number 1, there's so many one-score games. And I kind of wanted to make a point about where I think the running game has gone and the importance or lack thereof with the positions that really say this pick is about the running game. And it could get some people to complain to say, you know what, it's still about running the football. It's still about stopping the run. But I have those 2 positions coming up here as last, and I have special teams at number 7 ahead of what's coming up here in running back and linebacker.
Well, I think it's often glossed over, and me included, right? I didn't know we were going to quite do that on this pod. I didn't pay attention to the text message from Pete Demolitolitis of the whole rundown, so I kind of just went position for position, and then I was sitting here before the podcast looking and go, oh, damn, wait, they wanted to talk about special teams, and I got on the mic here, and I was like, hey, guys, I didn't do the special teams part. I'm sorry about that. But, shame on all of us, shame on me. We don't talk about it on a weekly basis enough during the regular season as far as it being an important part, of a team. And, more times than not, when you look at the teams who are the top of the NFL record-wise, they're very good on special teams. Of course, it's the third phase. Hey, the Chiefs were awesome at kick returns and awesome at making field goals. And then they have an awesome punter. Oh, and an awesome offense. So 2 out of the 3 phases, they're awesome. And they were awesome and won the Super Bowl. So, I look at that. Hey, we know what the Baltimore Ravens and Justin Tuck does for that team on a yearly basis. So I think if you made me pick one, though, it probably would be that Kansas City Chiefs special teams that it jumps out to me just to give you an answer there.
Yeah, Ravens are always a good choice, too, at that position, too. Okay, the 8th most important part of building a team I have down is running back. And I already have the offensive line at 4. I think they're a more important part of the running game. And I'd love to have Zeke Elliott. I'd love to have an awesome running back on my team. But you can't be awesome everywhere, as you and I have talked about. And I think capable. I think if you're really good at quarterback and on the offensive line, if you're just capable at the running back spot, I think you can win a lot of games.
Yeah, agreed. And again, I'm not picking the Carolina Panthers here. We could say Christian McCaffrey's the best running back in football and go through that exercise, and I get that. But if Christian McCaffrey gets hurt, I don't think very much of the rest of the roster there. So if we're building a team, that wouldn't be that smart there. And they better keep their fingers crossed that he doesn't get hurt, because it's going to hurt their offense in a big way. So you got to you look at the really good teams, whether it's the Eagles in the Super Bowl a few years ago, the Patriots every year. Of course, last year with the San Francisco 49ers, what they did have was a lot of running backs, to what you've already said. That's because it gives you flexibility. Scheme-wise, this guy's banged up. We know how physical the position is in general, to where, man, these running backs got nicks and knacks and are, banged up almost every week all year. So if you only have 1 or 2, then you're going to be in deep crap. Like, ask the Pittsburgh Steelers. I would say they have 1. 1 keeps getting hurt, and then you go, damn, they don't have a running back worth a damn on the roster. Right? James Conner gets hurt last year, and they're trying to make shit up in the running game because they got nobody. So, depth there is important, to your point. And I think, This is another good. I mean, it's a good one. There was some teams with impressive, rosters at the running back position, but I think ultimately here, I'm going with the Baltimore Ravens as the running back group that I would want more than any in football. I think with the Ravens, I think the big thing is they got four running backs that are capable, and it's like they got a good power back and a good speed back, and then they got a good backup power back and a good backup speed back. And that's what I like. And of course, like we said, we've seen New England do it with Dion Lewis and James White and LeGarrette Blount and whoever else that could run the football. They always had more than one guy. So, yeah, I look at this and go, okay, you got Mark Ingram, sledgehammer, explodes to the hole, will just absolutely knock your head off, head on in a collision. I mean, runs aggressive. Then Gus Edwards there to back him up. Wow, that's pretty damn good backup. I mean, he's a player. But then, okay, you got Justice Hill, who they drafted 2 years ago at Oklahoma State, a little bit of a speed guy. You can get him out on the edge. Lamar Jackson wants to, pitch him the ball on the option or whatever. He's scary, but he ain't as scary as J.K. Dobbins now, who's in that race. I mean, J.K.
Right.
Dobbins, holy crapola. I can just picture, Lamar Jackson in the shotgun, those big suckers on the offensive line. The Ravens, they got two good tight ends. We probably didn't talk about them enough in that position. But then you got Dobbins and Ingram on both sides of you. What do you do as a defense? Like, man, Ingram up the middle is scary. Man, Lamar Jackson on the edge is scary. Whoa, J.K. Dobbins on the edge is even scarier. So I look at that group right there and go, they could withstand two injuries and still be a really good running back group, let alone they have four of them. And I think two of them are very, very special.
So with the focus on quantity, and the Ravens are a great example, really over one or two who's just tremendous quality. Who do you have as your second best group? And go ahead and throw out some honorable mention teams there as well.
Well, I think the Colts were the team that I looked at as being the next group up, or the next team up as far as depth and, again, top end talent. First off, I like Jonathan Taylor. I thought he was the second best running back in the draft. I mean, he's going to be the starter. They didn't draft him in the second round to sit on the bench. He's going to be the guy. So I do love him. And again, at 230 and you run 4.39, like there ain't many people on planet Earth that can do that. But, it's the Jonathan Taylor, okay, Marlon Mack. Wow, that's awesome. Jordan Wilkins, who's a really capable guy and has had to play for them. He does good things. And then they got a guy like Naheem Hines, who we both have seen in person at North Carolina State a few years back, who's that jitterbug Darren Sproles type guy. So they got everything. So that was one that jumped out to me, certainly. The 49ers came to mind. The Vikings came to mind, especially because those top two are really special there. But they got other guys on their roster too. I think those are the ones that probably jumped out to me more than any other teams out there. Oh, and I did forget, the Broncos were on the list too. I just saw Pete Dimolitolitis, Texan. He, with Philip Lindsay, and my man Melvin Gordon. That is a pretty good group. Yeah, Melvin Gordon, scares me a little bit because of some knee issues and things like that. That gave me a little trepidation about them, but that is a damn good group, and it speaks to what you were talking about. That Broncos offense, watch out this year.
And listen to your explanation of it. It's very similar to the wide receiver group in the sense that more important than one awesome dude is good guys who are different. They have different size. They have different types of talents. And with these running backs, you've talked about different teams, but the one theme that's run through all of them, the groups that you like are ones that have different types of runners within the top four.
Well, yeah, I just think that you got to have that versatility at that position to, again, the broader point, like you've hit on a few times, with offenses being more creative, the play callers being, more in depth with formations and shifts and things like that. And then you got to have some guys where, yeah, if it's 3rd and 7, I don't want Mark Ingram running a route on a linebacker or doing anything like that. I mean, listen, I like him. Don't get me wrong. Now, if it's a blitzing team, I might want him in there to block somebody. So that's good. Oh, wait, they blitz their linebackers a lot? Hey, we need a physical guy this week. Hey, this team this week, they don't ever blitz. all right? And they play coverage every third down. Well, there's no point in having Mark Ingram in for that game. Then I want J.K. Dobbins. I want a guy that, all right, let's get him out. We don't have to worry about blocking. Let's get them all in space and watch them, make people miss and make them look silly. So I think it is an important part. And, between my time in New England, I learned that. And then, of course, my buddy Kyle Shanahan and his beliefs there. You got certain runners that are really good at outside zone. You got another guy that's a little better at inside zone. Hey, this guy is better behind a fullback or a pulling guard. He understands how to set up blocks and read off the block and make something happen. So, it's a very nuanced position. And I think it's really going to be the trend of the NFL going forward. I do, just, because running backs, like we know, have only a 4 or 5 year shelf life right now in the NFL for the most part.
Bringing us to the least important group here, the ninth and final group in building a team. We're calling this team Sim City. I have linebackers last. And before we talk specifically about players and teams, do you agree? Would you have had linebackers higher on this list?
I probably would have had them higher on the list. Yeah. I think that.
Who would you have
I would have
last?
probably had. Yeah. I probably, really probably would have gone with running backs last, I think. I think I would have. I think I would have, devalued them the most. Linebackers are really interesting conversation. It really is. And because, when you talk about like fast defenses, right? When usually the difference between what we would just go an average defense and a defense that's, really fast, and they just seem like they're all over the field, what you're really talking about is the linebackers in that case, more times than not. Most teams got defensive ends that can run pretty fast and fly around. Just about all the teams got secondary guys that, of course, can run 4.4. If you're not running 4.4 or 4.5 in the secondary in the NFL, then you got a horrible secondary. You got issues. But when you really think about the great defenses of our day, Seattle Seahawks, Broncos, those type of teams, they have linebackers that can fly around the field and create chaos. And, that's to me where it is important, let alone they do play into that conversation, Paul, that we've talked about being able to cover tight ends, being able to cover the running back out of the backfield, and the versatility of the offense can be matched by a defense if you have versatility of linebackers with certain guys who can do different things that way and stay on the field and not have to come off. And that can be dangerous, or that can be very tough on an offense, certainly.
And that's the issue. Because they often are the one position that is brought off the field to bring in the fifth or the sixth defensive backs. I think a lot of teams are playing with two more times than not, and that's one of the reasons I had them at last. And I also had them as the position out there defensively that even though they can play an important role against the pass, they're not as important as anybody on the defensive line, and they're not as important as the defensive backs. So no. I can think a number of linebackers that I would love to have on my team, but when it comes to affecting the pass, I just think they're in last place on a defense.
Yeah, I think you're right. I do. I think you're right. Now, we talk about affecting the run, that's a different conversation. Sure. But you're right. When it comes to pass, and the league mostly is a passing league, and the teams are more pass heavy, of course. Yeah, I get you. I don't think I disagree with anything you said there, certainly. And you're right. There's a number of teams in football that they might play one linebacker 50% of the game. And it's three safeties in the game with, a bunch of DBs to mix and match along with it. So I think there's a lot of teams that certainly don't value them quite as much as they used to, back in the day of, fullback and tight end sure. and two receivers and do that. It's just not the same game.
Who's your favorite linebacking group in the league?
I think this might shock you. All right. And again, this is not about like best duo in football. All right. I know there's
three. Okay.
Yeah. I'm trying to go three here. I'm trying to go for something with a little depth. I'm going with the San Francisco 49ers. Okay. And yeah, I don't know if people really realize or know their names of all of these guys, but tremendous speed. They are a team that can play base defense, Paul, when some teams play three receiver sets because they got some linebackers that can run 4.4. First off, Quan Alexander in the middle. Psycho, can fly sideline to sideline, 4.4 LSU type linebacker. But then you get into Dre Greenlaw, You know, the guy who made the great tackle at the end of week 17 to stop the Seahawks from getting the end zone. Another guy can fly around the field. You know, these guys aren't household names yet, but physical, no hesitation in their game, can cover people if they have to, unbelievable open field tacklers. Those two are, especially. And then, you know, last but not least, Fred Warner. I mean, Fred Warner, you know, he's, I think in NFL circles, you know about Fred Warner. I mean, in the NFL circles, Fred Warner's looked at as one of the better linebackers in all of football. You know, so to go along with him and then Quan Alexander and then have a guy like Dre Greenlaw, who's certainly a starting NFL middle linebacker. And then, you know, they got a little depth there with guys like Joe Walker and a few other guys where, okay, if somebody got nicked or knacked or something was issue, they're not going to like fall off earth. But when I look at a three, all right, and to the point here of the team building thing, like I know there's better duos, but at linebacker, one guy gets hurt sometimes. So if it's a duo and okay, that's great, but you got shit behind them, one of those guys gets hurt. So, well, I don't know. I'm not into that team. That team's going to be scary if one guy gets hurt. Like I worry about the Minnesota Vikings if like Anthony Barr gets hurt or Eric Kendricks get hurt. Their defense falls off when those guys aren't in there. You know, it's very predicated on their talent and what they can do. You know, hey, it's Seattle. Bobby Wagner and KJ Wright for years. I mean, it's amazing how they've avoided the injury bug and not had to deal with that. But they were a team that always had three linebackers for the most part. But, yeah, I look at that. You know, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they got two good ones. But one gets hurt, then I just go, damn, you got one good one, and I don't know what the other shit you got left over. So I look at the three here in San Francisco and go, yeah, we're mostly going to be a nickel all game long, but if one gets banged up or gets a stinger or something, you got another guy to come in and you don't miss a beat and they can still fly around the field. So that was one that probably shocked me. I did not expect to have the 49ers as the team with the linebackers. I really didn't when I went into the exercise. And when I got done, I just went, you know what? I think it's true. And they won the front seven, the 49ers. So we're basically taking the 49ers front seven for this exercise.
And that's one of the reasons these exercises, like you said, are fun in May, because you kind of have a thought of where you're going to go, but then you really get into the weeds of something that you wouldn't do this during the season, and you come out with a deeper appreciation of some team, and it helps you with your understanding of what they're doing in the fall because of the time you put into this, during the off season, because we are talking football in May for hours at a time.
Well, yeah. Well, and, you know, I think if you just stay like strict to the exercise too, it starts to give you a good feel for, like I said earlier in the podcast, if you go, well, no wonder this team is good, or, ooh, watch out for this team. They're going to be good. Because, you know, you sit there at the 49ers, we've talked about them in the running back conversation. We've talked about them in the offensive line conversation. I've given them the D-line and the linebackers. So, you know, that's 4 out of 8 or 9 position groups where the 49ers have been towards the top of the list. No wonder they were 13-3, you know, in the Super Bowl last year.
Right. And the other team that's come up the most it just happened to be the number 1 seed in the AFC, the Baltimore Ravens.
Yes, exactly right. Running backs, quarterback, offensive line, defensive line, they were in the conversation. Secondary, corners, they were in the conversation. Yeah, corners at least. Exactly right. But you know, that's a lot of positions to have in the conversation for one of the best in football. And, you know, that's it. Actually, this is going to be one of those exercises when I got to start picking wins and teams and things like that come July and August and all that. I'm going to go back and look at some of these ranks, because this is where I'm going to find some of the teams that I feel like are like, ooh, they're under the radar. They're better in these position groups than the team than the public or Vegas is giving them credit for. And, you know, that excites me. And maybe I can be right more than I'm wrong this year, picking games or trying to be the oracle and, you know, judge the season. We'll see.
So I had linebackers last. You would have had running backs last. But there it is. That's Sim City. That's building a team. Your favorite groups in the NFL. I prioritize the groups 1 through 9, quarterbacks all the way to linebackers. And there you go.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.